Hello, mamas, and welcome to another episode of Angel Moms, Hopes of Heaven, an extension of ALONNA'S song. My name is Angela Presley, and I am your host today. I'm excited today. I am here with my guest, Amanda Wallingsford, and I've just been reading up on your bio and just kind of following you a little bit before the interview. And I'm excited to have you on the show. Not only are you a mama, but you are also a professional psychiatrist. Am I saying that title right? Or
therapist, psychotherapist and coach. Yeah.
So I'm just ready to dig in and listen to what you have to say to us, and just give us some healing and advice on what you have in your journey. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here. I love what you're doing. I've been able to watch your podcasts and look at the stuff that you've done in honor of your daughter, and so it really inspired me to reach out and contribute.
Yes, thank you. So before we get started, we are all mamas here. So if you would like, you can tell us about Ashton, about your baby. We want to love up on Ashton before we get started.
Okay. Oh, I love that.
Go ahead.
That.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm the type of person that I really vocalize what I'm feeling at the moment. Pretty transparent. And when you said, love up on Ashton, we didn't get much time with him. We got 98 days. But my first thought was, he is a little magic maker in heaven.
Yeah.
He loves to send us signs. He just makes it known that he's up there, he's having fun, and that he's still with us. And when I say us, is my partner, my husband, his dad. And so it's very unique, I think, to some other moms' journeys where I got a short bit of time, and it's a different kind of grief, I think. Fewer memories that were made, maybe giving you rewinding a little bit. I'll do that, but just the beauty and the exposure that we have gotten to heaven existing after he left.
Wow.
And certainty. And it's just because things will happen and we're just like,
confirmation.
Only Ashton could have done that. You know? So it's my only biological child. I do have 2 other stepchildren, but he's my only biological child. And in utero at 11 weeks, they found fluid in his nucleal fold, which is generally an indicator that something is not developing correctly. And that day we were informed by the doctor. It was a substitute doctor. We were informed that day that Ashton was not going to make it any more than a week, that he was going to pass in utero. But we didn't have an answer. We didn't know why he had that fluid in there, and statistics weren't in his favor scientifically, but we decided to wait for the ultrasound specialist to come back in and see. And lo and behold, week after week in utero, he keeps growing. We finally get the answer, I can't remember, is maybe about 18 weeks, that he had a genetic condition called Noonan syndrome. So something very interesting about Noonan syndrome is there is an entire range where some people have it and they don't even know they have it. And some pass from it, whether in utero or once they've arrived on Earth, because of it can be a multitude of medical conditions. The primary one is a heart defect. And then generally shorter in stature and things developing slower. So little Ashton decided he was coming anyway.
Yeah.
And it was a nerve-wracking pregnancy, but he arrived and then he came out of my body and we're like, okay, so what does he have? What's the condition? And we had been monitoring his heart ultrasounds all the time, or I can't remember what they're called, echocardiograms, I think.
Yeah.
And so we knew where the spots were that weren't ideal, but what he was born, went straight into the NICU, and ultimately what was not survivable was his lymphatic system didn't develop. And so, going into a hospital, having a NICU baby, you start learning all things that you never knew existed. And the lymphatic system is basically where the fluid needs pathways to kind of meet back up and go back to the heart and all that. Well, his were like dead ends. So the fluid, he was really swollen. He was probably carried about 10 extra pounds just from fluid being held in the body and not having a place to go. He ended up getting an infection that wouldn't have been survivable, things like that. And so this was in 2020. He was born right before the pandemic. And then he passed on May 14th, 2020. And that was the day that my husband and I had to decide that it was time for him. He had fought his fight.
Yes.
But it was very clear that that was the best thing for him. And so we had as beautiful day as possible in the hospital with him and sent him off to be with God and get his angel wings. So it's painful, yet such a blessing that we even got him, and we got those 3 months. And there was actually knowing that the pandemic was very difficult for a lot of people, I think it actually maybe worked in our favor to be able to be at the hospital with him. We had to take turns, but that really, it made sure that my husband and I got to recharge. He would generally do the daytime routine. Ashton would do the nighttime. And that reminds me that one night, maybe 2 weeks before he left, I got some of the most beautiful smiles from him. And giggles, even though he had never made a sound, because he had all the tubes and stuff, and it wasn't giggles. That's actually exaggerated. It looked like he was giggling inside, I guess I should say. And so I got confirmation he knew I was mommy. He knew I was there. We could see it every time we came in the room. We'd see the heart rate and stuff, respond. So painful and beautiful. As I know,
Yes. Beautiful. Just really quick before we go further. I've never heard of that condition, but once you explained it, I understood. But I've never heard of that condition. Is that something often? Was he a one in so many?
It was very rare. It's a rare condition, and I don't remember the statistics. It's in the family of trisomy, all these things they warn you about when you're pregnant, which was a whole new world. It's like, well, watch out and do testing for this and Down syndrome and whatnot. And so it was even more random, although that's the statistics we have based on conditions, whereas some people, like I said, have it, but they don't know they have it. So I don't think the statistics are accurate.
Right.
Then to where he got all of the medical problems. There was not an issue he didn't have. So statistically, of having a body that just didn't function, that's even a smaller statistic.
Yeah. What a journey. in a small amount of time. But you said it, painful but beautiful, but beautiful. Wow. I I just love signs in heaven, and I want to start asking questions about that, but I'm
Okay.
gonna hold off. I just love that. Okay, so once Ashton moved on to heaven, just tell us a little bit about your just adjustment back, or are we still adjusting? I'm still adjusting, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
August will be 7 years for me. So,
Okay.
I know it's a lifelong adjustment, but
Yes.
just some people kind of that don't understand, they kind of want to rush you along because,
Yeah.
well, he wasn't with you for that long, or even, I've come across parents who've had children for years and people want to rush them along
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the journey. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so just kind of let us mamas know your adjustment with that small amount of time. Were you able to bring him home at all, or was it just a
No,
hospital?
no. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
hospital. So as you're asking these questions, Ashton was not my first tragic loss.
Okay. Okay.
Ashton was not my first grief journey.
Okay. All right.
And not my first intense grief journey. I've lost many people. But some significant ones when I was younger. And so I think the benefit I have, I'm not a grief specialist as a therapist. I've purposely not studied grief.
Yeah.
Or gone into that.
Okay.
I am a grief specialist by life, is kind of what I call myself now.
Oh,
and so I knew how to do this very differently than the first couple major losses. And that was, I will do whatever I need to in this moment, whether somebody's comfortable with it or not. I knew the best thing I could do for myself, and thankfully, and this is another topic we might get into, but thankfully my husband and I also grieved parallel, because I know that can be destroying to relationships. And I think partly because I was able to give him a lead, but I already knew people were going to give me the platitudes of he's in a better place or move on or whatever. I already had, what do they say here? It's not my first rodeo, is what they say in Texas all the time.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't owe anybody anything. I needed to be with myself, allow the grief to be there without judgment, without a timeline.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that my husband and I are so much sooner on the other side of the beauty of it, because we allowed ourselves the space to be exactly where we were at when it was there, if that makes sense.
That's so good. Listen, mamas, to what she just said. That is medicine. When we are in this fog of grief and you got people coming at you from every direction, 9 times out of 10, their kids are with them, or they haven't walked the walk just yet.
Right.
Hopefully they never will. We're in this fog, but we're still trying to take their advice. And I had so many people telling me, eat this, get up, let's walk, let's go somewhere, let's get your mind off of. And what you said is so key, so important. So that's good. That's good. To where we are is where we are. That's excellent. Excellent.
Mhm. Yeah, and what I wrote down is that the root of the discomfort is our society is uncomfortable with death.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot, there's the discomfort, and people mean well. I don't want to minimize that. People come from loving places,
Right.
but we as a culture, at least here in the United States, are very naive to being with the journey of grief.
Yeah.
It's more of a seen as a task. You grieve, you get over it, versus a journey. And so that was the knowledge that I think I had going through this,
Yeah.
and then was able to impart that with my husband. And so, like, I remember one time doing good, doing good in the parking lot of Home Depot, and then just full body
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
And he just sat there and held my hand. There was no timeline. There wasn't, we need to get into this store. There wasn't, this isn't the time for this. It was just, allow this to be here, allow the sensation to be here, without any story that it needs to be something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Just in the moment. In the
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
You serve yourself in the moment, whatever that may be.
Mhm.
As long as it's not causing harm to yourself or others.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
disclaimer there. Yeah.
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 Just in the moment. That's good. That's good. I always ask about the dads. I want to know,
Mhm.
how was his, how are his moments? I know you just said that you guys just kind of sit in it.
Mhm.
Has there been any anger or any?
Yeah. He's been able to express anger more easily than I have. Anger's never been a comfortable emotion for me.
Mhm.
I don't like to take space with anger, so he's been kind of a model for me. We have one of those, it's called a bob. It's like a, it's punch it, you punch him. He's
Yeah,
like shaped like this,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
is, and it's
A
called a
punch
bob.
bag.
So we name him Bob.
Yeah,
And so there are times that, Kevin, my husband, he's gone and beaten the crap out of it.
yeah, yeah.
And I think as partners, what we've done well is I allow him, I don't ask him questions. It's just like, oh, here's anger.
Mhm,
Okay, here's your
mhm.
expression. And so he's also been able to model that, where I've been able to, I bought punching gloves for Bob
Yeah.
because I wasn't going to do my hands, but where I've been able to play with that anger more in a physical energy space.
That's good.
Um, uh, I, my, oh, so he, right after Ashton passed, we both joined a parent loss group. We tried two different ones. One was a parent loss group that a loss of any age, and we ended up joining an infant and
Yeah.
in utero loss for like stillborn and
Yes.
whatnot. So that helped. So then we were both going at the grief treatment at the same pace, and then he actually goes to a dad's group. Still, he just went to it the other night online. He goes to a dad's group, and I'm not recalling the organization,
Huh? Mhm.
but it's just for dads who have lost children. And so that was his staple of having support.
Wow, that's good. That's good for moms listening, because dads are just important. Alana's dad, even though we're not together, I know that he speaks at with groups, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that he has joined and sat in with some dads to offer, advice, comfort, and also to receive.
Mhm.
So yeah, dads are just as important um
Yes.
in this journey,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, with Ashton staying in the hospital, no coming home,
Mhm.
the other siblings with that COVID, were they able to come in? Were they,
Yeah.
is it just pictures?
That's really a big drawback. Unfortunately, so it was before COVID. And so my stepdaughter, she's 14 now, so she was 11. They had strict winter rules in the NICU that kids under a certain age couldn't come in because they're like,
Yeah.
germ magnets.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, oh, we're just waiting for a couple weeks once winter passes and they don't have the kind of winter illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit. So unfortunately, she only got to be with them twice, for about 15 minutes each. And we had to get special permission. One was to meet him. I can't remember. We had transferred hospitals and got permission when we transferred. And then was on the last day, we got special permission to bring her in for maybe 45 minutes. She doesn't speak much about it. I don't understand her experience. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
one day she'll share, but what I can imagine is it has to have been very confusing.
Yeah.
My stepson, he's 24, never got to meet Ashton. My dad never got to meet him. It's the day that my dad and mom arrived. My mom had already met him because she came out when he was born. The day that they arrived at the airport, COVID was announced and rules were shut at that moment.
Yeah.
So that's a big sadness I have, and I think other people have.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
I know he's so loved by so many people though that never even met him. So
Yeah. And I'm sure the staff was great. The hospital staff, I'm sure. Yeah.
I had never had a situation where I gave much attention to medical staff, but angel in human form. I mean, just they wanted the best for him, and for all of their patients, but they were fighting for him, and we were very blessed to have that support.
Good. So now that we've loved on Ashton and we have an idea about his light once he was brought to you and your husband and your family, tell me, were you already in this study before Ashton or after
As far as mental health and like
Yes.
psychotherapy? Yes,
Right.
I've been in the mental health field since I started studying school, in college.
Wow.
I was interested ever since I was a teenager. So I already had a pretty good foundation of kind of mental health and all that.
So tell me, did that kick in, or were you just a mom? Was it
okay? Yeah,
I've been knowing this since I started school. Since I started school, I know the signs, I know what to say, I know what to do. Did that kick in, or did it take a back seat? What you know as a mental health?
I think that's a really good question. I think so. My major loss before Ashton was losing my biological father to suicide at 19.
Wow.
And my coping response to that was very academic. I'm going to understand what's happening. I'm going to figure out what I'm feeling. But it was so intellectual that I neglected all of the stuff inside because I thought that was the answer. I'm just going to understand it. So I think that with Ashton, I had kind of learned the hard way that I needed to be a mom first. I don't know that I can ever turn off my mental health hat, my therapist hat, because it is very ingrained in me at this point. But I do think that I was conscious of I need to just be a mom. I think that's also where the pandemic was a benefit because I literally got the permission to not have many clients.
Yeah.
because half of them were like, well, I don't know when I'm going to come back because I can't come see you. And we slowly transitioned to video.
Right.
And so it was kind of a natural permission for me to put work on the side, but then I integrated work because that also does fuel me to be in a place of service. But I think I did pretty well at taking care of myself organically, but with the knowledge in the background.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does. Were your colleagues, was it someone that you felt comfortable with that you could call to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I just need to unleash. We know that you have the knowledge, but now your mom. Was there a coworker? Was there someone outside of your husband where you were like,
yes, I went to therapy. I signed up for therapy once, well, I mean, I've gone to therapy on and off, but I specifically chose a neonatal therapist, postpartum therapist, before he arrived, because one was just emotions, or just, just the whole roller coaster. And I wanted to be on the front end of that, so I didn't get depression and all that. But I also found a therapist who had experience in the NICU. So it was very, I'm going to be proactive about this before the problem sneaks up on me. And so I did that. And then my support and friends and family were amazing. But then I switched therapist after that chapter. I went to a Christian therapist to then start asking and exploring the existential questions.
Yeah.
So, and then, so I was really paying attention to what I thought my body and mind and spirit needed to help me alongside.
Wow. That mama's what she just said. That's so good. Number one, she got ahead of it, and a lot of our losses are very unexpected. So that's trauma in itself. That's trauma in itself. So for you to get ahead of the game, to get prepared for what you pretty much was told was coming, that's just kind of off the charts for me. That wouldn't have even crossed my mind to do that.
Well, and I think that's a good point. That's one of the things that I see as a beauty, is that we were prepared.
Yeah.
We were very prepared verbally that this is not necessarily going to end well. And so it was an advantage.
Yeah.
I also, after I had lost my dad, I plummeted eventually. And so I was never going to go back to that hole again. Yeah. So that's why I committed to myself, I'd be proactive. But I know there's so many parents out there, like you said, you don't get a preparation. It's a tragedy that happens in a split second. And what I would say then is to kind of circumvent that is, from that moment, be open to finding a support system that is just yours. No investment in any other direction other than, I'm going to help you through this process.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Because again, as a mother, we're so stuck in the loss. We're trying to wrap our head around the loss. Going to see someone is not even on the radar. Now, eventually, as time goes on, it's okay, maybe I need to see someone. Maybe I need to talk to someone. So mamas, definitely keep that in mind. If you find yourself in dark places, and the dark places are going to happen, it's going to happen. What is your advice on dark places?
Yeah, I think
As far as, yeah.
I think what it highlights is try to go get your support, whatever that might look like, whether it's group or individual, through a spiritual community or something. Get that before the symptoms of impairment show up. So there is grief, and there is grief that's going to happen, maybe loss of appetite, tired, all of that. But what you don't want to happen is it to turn into PTSD or major depression, where it is so dark that now the entire world seems hopeless. And it can feel hopeless. I'm not minimizing that it's such a thing to grapple with, but you don't want it to where, especially with trauma, because I am a trauma specialist, trauma, if untreated, gets so integrated into the body where the system then only operates from fight, flight, or freeze. What you want to do is get support before it gets so internalized that you can't even feel safe at all.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good to do it on the front end before now I have a problem that I can diagnose.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know for me, it was just too peoply. I didn't, it was like a sensitivity when I went out. I didn't want to be around people. And from that standpoint, you can easily spiral down into the dark places. So yeah.
And that's another unique thing with the pandemic, because it would have been too people-y for me too, but we were shut down. So I didn't have to feel bad about not showing up somewhere. My husband didn't have to feel bad. It was like, we're not allowed, sorry, and so, that, which could also be a slippery slope to being too isolated. But I can definitely relate to too much stimulation and needing to be able to have that space, and which is why I'm kind of differentiating that. Find that person that's just for you, whether it's a therapist, a coach, a spiritual leader, that so they're not also taking from you. All they're doing is giving, even if it's just giving by holding space.
That's good. Yeah. That's good, because you want this at this time, you need things poured in.
Yes. I love that phrase. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because we're definitely empty. We're lost and empty at at times. So that's very good.
And I think when it's family members, they want to pour in, or friends, they want to, but they're also affected. So they need some pouring in too. So that's why having that outside, like the group that my husband would go to, is it's just a community agreement that we're pouring into each other.
Yeah, that's good. What would you say, or how long, even if there's a time frame, say if a mama is feeling, okay, I just need me right now. I don't want to go see anybody. I don't care about what anybody has to say, because I went through that. I don't want to hear a scripture. I don't no, I just want my kid. So is that a safe place to be for a long time? I'll do it myself. I'll figure it out myself.
I don't think there is a timeline. I think it kind of goes back to my thoughts around go get support if thoughts of suicide come in.
Yeah.
If panic attacks are taking over where you can't even leave the house. If you can't show up to work at all because that grief has become so powerful, I guess. After 6 months or a year, because unfortunately the reality is that there is at some point we have to reintegrate to get things done, and that's good for us. We need to find purpose outside of our loss. But the timeline, I think, is just very individualized, and also how well somebody knows themselves, as far as maybe if I had the finances to take 3 years off, I probably would have done it, and it wouldn't have been in isolation. It would have been like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to work after this, so that would be different than somebody physically no longer capable because the grief has taken over so strongly.
What would you say? What advice would you give for triggers? I get a lot of triggers when it comes to Alonna and walking this journey. And sometimes they're more than I can bear, these triggers. What advice can you give us to get through trigger moments? I don't know if you have them. As far
I think my question would be is, can you clarify maybe what a trigger moment looks like for you? Because I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. Trigger can be something as simple as a memory coming up on my phone. A song we used to sing together. Just for me, triggers are unexpected things. Like if I brace myself, or if I can get time to pull myself together, to know I have to go somewhere and speak about Alonna. I have to go out and make sure her gravesite is cleared up and cleaned up and get it nice. And when I can prepare myself, I do better. It's the off guard things that.
My favorite saying is, "Oh, here's grief. Showed up when it wanted."
Yeah.
And so I think what I've just learned is kind of going back to what I said, is to just be with it. One thing that really helps me is to be just with the physical sensation. I'm just feeling it in my body. And I learned this in the last few years. I happened to be in a coaching program at the same time, learning some new tools. But as I learned to just be with the physical sensations without going into the story of, why did this happen to me? This is unfair. Not that there's not time and that we shouldn't have that, but really just be with, oh, this is the longing I have for them. So probably my statement is, I just miss him. So that's so I'm with that sensation of, I just miss him. I want him here. I want him physically here. And for me, that helps it pass alongside of, that's the time I need. I don't owe anybody else an explanation. And so, for example, as a therapist, it's not really good of me to maybe walk into a session all dysregulated and crying about my son. But I have the right to say, I'm going to need to start session late today. I apologize. I'm going to need to start late today. So whether it's a session or you're about to show up to a friend's house, and then finding people and teaching people to just say, okay, I'll give you the space.
Yeah.
They don't need to fix it. So teaching people, they don't need to fix it. It's just there. You don't need any answers because there are no answers, right? You know, there is not going to be an answer good enough until we get there on this side of heaven.
No, no, no. And that's so good of what you just said, because so many moms, including myself, immediately go into the whys, the ifs, the what ifs, the if only I coulda, shoulda, woulda, instead of just being in that moment. And it's okay to feel what you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't think of that, because I immediately, instead of being in my moment, I immediately go into what the, a lot of bleep words, you know.
Yeah. And I think noticing that sensation is what helps us drop into just the moment. And so I notice, I literally am kind of look at, I generally, my heart-wrenching pain, of course, you have the heart that feels like it's broken, but it's also, I notice like it's right here. And so I just be with that. I breathe with it. And just allow it of this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to be angry with God. He understands.
That was, I think that was a good call I made to go find a Christian therapist, because that's what she taught me, is God can handle it. God can hold it.
He can handle it. He can handle it. I say a lot to God that I'm not happy with this at all.
Oh yeah.
He hears that often. He hears that often. I am not happy with this hand that's dealt at all.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. So before we start going into the end of things, just from your professional advice and from your mama advice, is there anything that you want to express that I did not touch on? Anything that you've seen just walking your journey that, hey, this helped me and I want to get it out there, or I've worked in this area and I believe moms need to know this. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you can say, I think mamas need this. I think they need this.
Yeah. As soon as you said that kind of last statement, my response is, there is no right way. There is no wrong way. And we can get caught up in, am I doing this right? And should it look like this? And they have the 5 stages of grief, and somebody else is introduced. I don't even look at that's why I never studied it, because I was like, these stages, I don't know what they're talking about, because they flip-flop every day, and so it's a good guide to know that there's going to be some denial stuff, there's going to be anger, there's going to be some bargaining, whatever those those things are, but to just allow yourself to let go of, it needs to be this way.
Yeah.
Because every grief journey is different, every loss is different. We can like connect, like you and I can connect that we've lost a child, but it's not the same
at all.
And so there's some similarities we can relate to, and so allowing ourselves permission that my journey is my journey. And nobody gets to tell me it needs to be a different journey.
That's good. That's good. I wanted to just kind of add on to that. When you were speaking that, my mind went to, she's stronger than I am. What is she doing to get that
Mm.
strong?
Oh,
She's,
mm-hmm.
that's what my mind went to. Oh, you're so strong. If you only you knew, if you only knew. So that comparison to,
Mm-hmm.
she's stronger than I am, and her kid, died too. Why is she so strong?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So being careful of those, where does that come from? Because we have some idea that stronger looks a certain way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean somebody else is stronger. In my situation, I don't think I'm stronger. I'm a little more practiced at this. I don't love that. You
Yeah.
know, I don't love that I've had practice at this. I
Mm,
don't love that I learned from trial and error, you know,
yeah.
or more error than anything, and so being careful of where do we get these ideas of what strong looks like versus not, what easier versus worse looks like, because people go into comparison too. Well, I can't feel that way because that person had it worse.
Yeah.
No, it's still a horribly painful loss.
Yeah.
And so looking at where those ideas and stories come from, and then going back to, this is my journey,
Yeah.
and I get to fully have compassion for my journey.
Hmm. Hmm. Man, the more you talk, the more I'm like, so I'm gonna, I was, yeah, I was getting ready to go into something just off of what you said there. That's just, everything you're saying is just so good. And it's just bringing such healing as I sit and listen. So I know mamas are just, they're just going to absorb this, because that's what I'm doing. I'm just really absorbing. Give me one thing you have, because I love these. Give me one thing
Mm-hmm.
that you felt like, that's Ashton. That's Ashton. There's no question. That was him. A dream,
Um,
a sign, yeah.
um, I get signs through numbers. What makes me laugh is the very first one was a lightning bug,
Mm.
and it was the most full body experience. I don't even remember the timing. Maybe it was 2 weeks after he passed.
Mhm.
And ever since then, he shows up as these weird insects. Like
Uh,
one time I was just on my couch doing therapy over video, and I look up and there's a praying mantis on my, just hanging from my curtain. I don't know where this thing came from.
uh-huh.
So yeah, the insects are very entertaining to me, with some rules of spiders are not allowed.
Not
you
allowed.
know, but other things that yeah, numbers are an interesting one, because my mind goes to, that can't be what, but like for uh yesterday I decided to, I'm gonna be, it's a surprise for my husband, but I decided to buy this ticket
Okay.
to honor our wedding anniversary, and there's things about this ticket of what we're gonna do that also tie to Ashton and whatnot. And sure enough, the confirmation is something something 2227777. And I'm like, you little trickster. Like, you knew that, like, you were telling me you were also going to be there.
Look at that.
And because statistically, and this is what I get at time all the time. It's like, statistically, this is nearly impossible, the number of times I get these signs.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's got to be whatever. But yesterday I just start laughing. And I was like,
Of
of course, my confirmation number has this. So
of course, of course. Good, good. Love it. Love it, love it. Okay, Amanda, before we go, I got a couple of more things.
okay.
Number one, where can mamas reach out to you? What's your platform? Have you written anything? Have you, tell us, where can you
Yeah.
reach? Do you have
Okay.
anything out there?
Yeah. I think the best too. So what I ended up doing actually after Ashton passed, I I wrote a book. It's called Embody Your Worth. It came from me being really curious as to how I was okay. How I knew I was going to be okay and how I was still functioning. And so did brainstorming, wrote things down, organized, and that book is going to be published within the next month. We're at the final end of pieces. I'm waiting on a couple kind of final details, but once I get those, like, it's going to be in print. So that website is embodyyourworth.com. As far as, so I do coaching too, and my husband and I will eventually get into some grief stuff. I haven't quite been ready for this or for that. This is my first time to really talk about the grief. I've finally been fully ready to say, okay, let me share some tools. But people can follow me on Instagram. So Amanda Wallingsford, one word. WALLINGSFORD. And so I post some stuff on their events that I'll do, but also just things that I'm sharing. I'm not on there all the time. It's definitely not my everyday thing, but I share when I feel inspired. So yeah. People could certainly, the website, so with that, to contact me, they could do through Instagram, or they can email me on the email address that's there with the website.
Wonderful, wonderful, Amanda. Excited for this book. Excited for this book. Wow. Because you touched so many things to where I was like, this is good. This is good stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes, love it. Okay, my last question that I ask all my mamas. Amanda, what are your hopes of heaven?
I cannot wait to hold him right here on my shoulders. That's where I get his presence too, is he comes right here and he lays on me, and I can't wait to do that. And for some reason, I just imagine he's playing with dinosaurs all the time, so I can't wait to play with dinosaurs and him. I don't know why, but I just always think that he is getting to go ride dinosaurs. So I just look forward to it, and it's going to be beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
I never thought of dinosaurs in it, but I betcha. Yeah. It's heaven.
And they're totally, you're able to ride them. Like, in my mind, it just makes sense. And I don't know if it comes from a movie that I saw in childhood or what, but
I love it.
He gets to just play.
I love it because he gives us the desires of our hearts. Dinosaurs. I love it. I love it. Yep. Amanda, I love your hopes of heaven. So
thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah. I love what you're doing. And if there's a way I can support in the future or anything, but I just love that you are just being, this is a resource that people get to have, and especially, like you said, moms, and knowing they're not alone can feel so isolating. And so I honor you that this is the way that you are honoring Alonna.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your journey with the world and carrying on her legacy.
Definitely. Thank you. It was an honor to have you on Angel Mom's Hopes of Heaven. And we'll
thank you. I was honored to be here.
Yes. We will definitely be looking out for you, for your book.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Sounds good.
All righty.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.